Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast exploring life-changing career moves. I'm your host, Brian Akar. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the bold decisions that transform their careers and lives. Let's dive in. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Why I Left. Today, we're diving into the world of sports management and brand partnerships, a dynamic and often unpredictable industry where the stakes are high and the rewards can be even higher. I welcome Nathaniel Cook, a partnership strategist with a wealth of experience in the sports industry and who is no stranger to career transitions. Whether you're interested in the sports industry, seeking inspiration, or just curious about the paths others have taken, this episode is for you. Let's go check it out. All right, welcome back. So our guest today is Nathaniel Cook, a seasoned professional in the sports industry with a remarkable track record in strategy, brand partnerships, and business development. Nathaniel's journey has taken him from the world of journalism and social media to high-profile roles with Rucker Park Streetball, the NBA, and most recently, USA Flag. Throughout his career, Nathaniel has navigated multiple transitions, each one bringing new challenges and opportunities. And today, we're going to explore his most impactful career moves, the decisions that led him there, and the lessons he's learned along the way. So Nathaniel, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Brian. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here. And, I always like to give a shout to how we got connected, right? And so from a prior season, Mark Scott is somebody who we have a kind of a mutual connection with. And so shout out to Mark for putting us together. It was a great chat with him, and I'm glad you're here today. You've done a lot of things, right? And I'd love for you to maybe share a little bit about your journey from studying communication studies at Kean University to now entering the sports management field.
I studied communications at Kean University. It's a small liberal arts university in New Jersey. Once I graduated there, I always had like affinity for sports. Like I worked in like sports newspaper in college, and I was like, man, I had to get into sports somehow. Never thought I was going to be, my first job out of college would be the NBA. You dream big though. But yeah, so basically how that started, once I graduated, shout out to, it's a barbershop in South Orange, Lucky Sevens, was working there. Basically, I bartered it, being broke college kid, just graduated. I bartered, I told the owner, listen, I can help write articles. He was trying to do an up-and-coming magazine. And I said, hey, I could write your articles for free. Just in return, free haircuts. And I knew that he had a great network with NBA guys. So like J.R. Smith would go there, Kyrie Irving, a few executives in the NBA. I knew that he cut their hair. So just having like, a hustler background and just always knowing like, okay, maybe he could put the pieces of the puzzle together for me and make some introductions. So that's kind of where I was. I was working there for a couple of months, and he introduced me to a guy named Miles Pistorius. Shout out Miles. He's with the Dolphins right now. He was a lawyer at the NBA. So while one day Fresh at the bar was cutting his hair, he made an introduction to me. I told Miles kind of my big ambitions, what I wanted to be. I thought I was going to be like the next David Stern I wanted to be. But, he kind of, leveled me down, and we talked. I sent him my resume. He marked it all over, told me to send it back to him. And he sent it, and I sent it back to him. And then that was during a lockout, Brian. So there was no NBA in 2011. And then once, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a call from the NBA. Had an interview. Obviously, Miles kind of set everything up for me. And then that was like the rest was history. I was hired by the NBA, and I learned a life lesson then. As we all know, it's not always about what you know, it's who you know.
Absolutely. And your early work, like you said, writing articles, you're doing these types of things. You were working with New Jersey News and Pipeline News, and these types of things also seem to really have set the stage for your career in sports. How did some of those experiences shape your approach to branding and partnerships kind of early on?
Sure. I would say like working at Pipeline News, NJ News, you had to have like a fearless mentality, because if you wanted to get the story, especially when you was up and coming, no one really knew you. So in order to, get the story, that's how you survive. So, or, you just had to be like really ambitious and have like a take no, not taking no. You was going to get the story, you was going to get the opportunity. And I kind of took that into branding and what I do even now with partnerships. It's like always just making sure that, don't take no for an answer. You find a medium ground and you do something that people can remember you by. So I always wanted to do things like that. And those kind of disciplines, like I said, I still use to this day. Like, and I always tell young kids that want to get in the industry, young students or people that intern, just always make sure when someone hears your name, it's something impactful behind it. It's something that they can remember behind it. It's not you just like not someone that just name just comes across and they just okay, that was another intern or that was another person. You want to make sure there's an impact behind it.
No, I like that. And so, as you mentioned, look, you've held these various roles in the sports industry. You got Rucker Park Street Ball, you had NBA, and now USA Flag. As you think about these transitions, which of them do you consider to be the most impactful? And really, what motivated you to make some of those moves?
I would say honestly, is Rucker Park Street Ball probably was the most pivotal, just because a big shout out to Wayne and Gus for giving me the opportunity. When I worked in NBA, as you know, you're like a small fish in a big pond. There's so many layers and protection and shields. When I went on the Rucker, I was kind of like running a department myself and growing a department, and getting out there and just getting my hands wet. So when revenue didn't come in, it kind of fell on me. When partnerships didn't close, that was on me. Things like that. It taught me a lot of different leadership ability and skills. Because like our big time partners like Lids, all the way to like Chick-fil-A, the Big 12, I was on the front line dealing with every negotiation, every meeting, anchoring things, signing sometimes when you're in the NBA, you're kind of like, just in the back, being a shield. But working at Rucker, I learned a lot about leadership. And, I thank Wayne, for still, giving me the opportunity, seeing something in me when they could have went in all the different options. So I just learned a whole bunch about this. A partnership branding space by working with Wayne and everyone at Rucker Park.
No, that's awesome. And so, you learned about leadership, but let's talk about you now. You as the professional, what did you learn about yourself during this time in your life? Maybe in addition to the leadership, like what did you find within you?
I found like another reserve, and basically I just found how to negotiate, Brian, and how to take yourself and have empathy for another partner, another person that you're going to do business with. I think like when I was working at the NBA, I was just so like what the NBA wanted, what we wanted on our side. But me being on the front line, a lot of the negotiation, I learned about how it's actual partnership. It's like a marriage. Like it has to make sense for both parties. And also I learned from this as well as project management. It's about, okay, you can secure the deal, but making sure all the deliverables are met on the back end, making sure that the partners are felt heard, make sure that everything is being met. So many different project management skills I learned. So that's something I learned about myself as well. And also that I can take the reign. Like I don't always have to be in the passenger seat. I can actually drive, the vehicle for a lot of cool partnerships. So that's something I definitely learned about myself.
No, that's awesome. And so once those things started to kind of really come together, when did you really start feeling comfortable in that move that you had made?
I would say honestly, like after our Big 12 opportunity we did, shout out to Tyrell, the CMO for the Big 12. We did Big 12 at the park last summer. And just for me to see from like point A to point Z, how I kind of quarterback that whole opportunity from the interest to negotiation to the logistics of the day to working with all the different vendors and working with the Big 12 and making sure the city was we was complying with the city and just making sure all those moving parts and then actually just being there and seeing everything coming to fruition. That was really like a moment for me where I figure like, hey, I can kind of take this wherever I wanted to. If I keep my foot on the gas, I really could like, run a partnership for like Google or Twitter or a big time like corporation. That was kind of like an aha moment for me, I would say, Brian.
No, I love that. That must feel really good. And so this diverse experience across these different roles in the sports industry, you decided when you made these moves. Tell us about when you knew it was time for you to move on from a position and maybe seek a new opportunity. That could be either from NBA to Rucker or even Rucker to USA Flag, whichever one.
Sure. Yeah, so I would start like with the NBA. I felt when it was time to move on just for the NBA is just that, like I said, I wanted to be impactful. And I felt like, me going to another entity could probably give me a more purpose and impactful, because I just was getting like, and I'll never forget, I remember John Wall, shout out to John Wall. I have a lot of affinity for him because I remember I would see him a few times at different like all-star events, different things like that. And he was just always engaging with me. He was always like giving me like, because back then, you kind of sit in the back, you're quiet, you're not heard, you're not seen. But he always took kind of like an engagement to me. And I always felt like, maybe I can do this on my own, or maybe I can go out and branch out and start doing more contract work and start working with other people. And that's kind of what I did when I left the NBA. I started working with like the Teron Tidwells of the world, who's a big time financial advisor. I started helping manage him, and then I started learning about negotiation. I started learning about all these different tactics that I could use, and then I elevated myself. And then that's when Rucker saw me, and then I got into Rucker, and I kind of like I always tell people, even when you leave, you still just have to have that chip on your shoulder that whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna kill it. You're gonna always kill it and do more than what's asked of you. And I know that's cliche, Brian, but that's very important because people remember that. If people know, like, hey, if Wayne gave me a revenue goal, he knew I was gonna hit that. If I had a partnership goal, I was gonna hit that. Beyond that, and that's kind of been my calling call everywhere I go. I try to over deliver.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you highlight, because one of the things that I often mentor. Obviously, I'm in a different industry, but I often mentor some young folks, early careers, and one of the first things I often stress to them is that whatever it is that you are hired for to do, like, because everyone wants to progress so fast, and I get it, right? But whatever it is they brought you in here for, are you killing it? Are you establishing a bar of excellence that people can recognize the work that you do? Because I'll be honest, I don't mince words. Folks, who I've had this conversation with, they know I really don't mince words, right? In that, if you're not doing that at that level, you're not ready to have this conversation, because I want you to be killing it first before you start talking to me about, oh, I want to progress and oh, I want to do this. No, I want you to be great at what you're doing right now, and then we can talk, because otherwise it's a waste of time, right? And so I love that you say that, because that is so important, especially for young folks.
Yeah, and also too, what I tell people too, you have to audit yourself. I
Yeah.
do like every 6 months, I do a reflection on myself, my skill set, what my job was, have I excelled, or things like that. I think a lot of us are young people that don't do that. Self reflection, that you have to look within yourself, and you can't lie to yourself. You can lie to other people, but you can't lie to yourself. It's like, have you done all of the tangible things that you're supposed to do to get ahead? And if you haven't, to continue to work on yourself. And I, like you said, everybody wants it fast. Like, it's a marathon. It's really not a race, because a lot of times I think too, Brian, is that a lot of young people want these positions. Sometimes we see it, they get these positions, they're overwhelmed because they skip steps, they haven't went through the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I want to talk a little about some of your partnership work, right? Let's go back to Rucker again. I saw that you brokered some key partnerships with major brands like Adidas, the Knicks, right? What was some of the keys to successfully navigating these types of high profile deals?
I think the key thing is listening. I think is one big thing that a lot of people don't listen, and I think also too is always placing value and finding what's the pain point is. Like, for perfect example, like with the Knicks, they've reached out to us, me and Wayne, and basically their pain point is they wanted to do more things within the community. So we came up with an action plan where, hey, playoff series, let's have a night at Rucker Park where the Knicks will come, the Knicks bus will come, the Knicks are playing on the road. We'll have an activation at the park, different community things. So I think that's a big part. The first thing is listening, because we listen, people are going to tell you what their pain point is, and it's up to you to come up with a formula to fix those and a strategy to fix those pain points. The second thing too is, and this is kind of cliche, but don't be greedy. I think a lot of deals get killed off greed, where people are just super greedy, but they don't really want to form a partnership. And also too is having empathy. Is realizing what the other side is asking for, what are you asking for, but also having empathy for them as well. But also, Brian, too, is you never want to do in any negotiation, especially big time partnership, you never want to overpromise, underdeliver. Do what you know you can do. If you know you can't do that, don't tell them you can do that. Because some people do that, and you're are risking not only losing that partnership, but your reputation, everything. So just do what you can do. I always tell people that don't never overpromise and underdeliver, because that's going to be a stain that's hard to get off of your resume and of your reputation.
No, absolutely. And now your current role, you're at USA Flag. Some of the things you're focused on is really expanding the brand into new markets, right? And I gotta give you a shot. I don't know if you're involved with this or not, but I see more kind of promotion and marketing around USA Flag from an advertising standpoint, which is great to see, right? And I think, aren't they making it an Olympic sport soon?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
right, right.
Football. Yeah, in 2028, it should be.
2028. So that's awesome, right? Thinking about this role now at USA Flag, how does this role differ from your previous positions? And really, what excites you the most about it?
Yeah, what really was differentiate this from other positions, Brian, is that it's new and it's new, it's innovative. But honestly, I think the thing is it's so disruptive, Brian, just because flag football fills a lot of pain points that your traditional football doesn't. It's safety, obviously. We know concussions, the physical side of football. Also, it's gender inclusive. So we have female teams, we have youth teams, we have adult teams. So now females can play in the sport. Also, three as well, we are very parent centric, like our moms, our fathers getting involved with the children. So right now, and then also too, as you know, the popularity of sports betting has made all these like small sports attractions. Like you look at flag football, pickleball, cornhole, the list goes on and on. The popularity of sports betting has made all these like smaller sports attractions now super, super, super popular and put them out in the forefront. So just dealing with that, also dealing with so many people that are not even sports fans that are attracted to this. So like when you're dealing with Rucker NBA, you're mostly dealing with, I would say, an umbrella of sports, people that are affinity to sports or sports brands that are attracted to sports. But with flag football, you having there's moms that are curious, you have doctors that are curious, you have mayors and governors and people that are just curious about the sport because they see how popular it is. So just dealing with those different atmospheres and those different lanes, you learn a lot. But I would say that's differentiation of all those different things that we do with Rucker Park NBA and flag football.
No, that's awesome. And you said something about, I mean, sports gambling. I mean, I guess you can gamble on anything, but you can gamble on cornhole. Is that
Yeah,
wow? I
yeah.
mean, come on now. That takes me back to
It,
college.
yeah, right. It's like crazy. People literally gamble on everything.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I am kind of surprised. So, okay. Good to know. Good to know.
But it was not because right. It was I was watching the other day. They were saying there's more people now that are invested in sports betting that gamble than they do in the stock market.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's intriguing, right? I mean, well, I mean, I don't know what to say, but that is, I guess, look, there is that level of, competition that I guess that comes with the whole gambling piece. That look, it's the endorphins get really high when you win big. I always see the things online where someone hits the parlay and they're like, oh, they invested $200, now they're going home with 10, 15,000. I'm like, hey, kudos to you, but I can understand how that could be very, very addicting. So yeah. So when you think about some of these transitions that you've had, what's been the biggest surprise or unexpected lesson that you've encountered along the way?
Don't take anything for granted, I would say. I would say a lot of times that even from a partnership space, we think like once the deal is done, it's going to automatically renew or we're already going to keep a partnership. A lot of times, like we see that, we can sign a deal with entity for 1 year and they don't renew next year. But it's taking that information, that data, and getting better with it. I think a lot of times, people, again, it's about self reflection. I always tell Rucker Park, USA Flag, anytime I talk and we talk, I say we need to reflect on what we're doing good, but also what we need to improve on. You know what I mean? So I always take that with a grain of salt. And also just asking for feedback, constant feedback in the partnership space, branded space. If an activation didn't go well, if a partnership didn't go well, just don't leave it by the wayside. Send them feedback. And then the things that they said that they want you to work on, actually work on them and send them a progress report. I do that all the time. So if a partnership says, hey, we think these 5 steps, or 5 actionable steps, should be met before we talk about partnership again. Within 6 months, I'm working on that and I'm sending them a progress report. So things about that as well. And also, too, I would say don't never get too high, but never get too low. Always stay in the medium. Because a lot of times when you're doing like killing it a quarter in a revenue partnership and revenue is coming in, everybody's feeling good, then you can kind of just get a little bit too big headed and lose your eye on the prize. But if you get too low, people feel that in meetings and conversations and things like that. So no one wants to give you any partnership, especially give you their money if you're not confident in the product yourself. So that's what I always say, to stay middle grounded, you should be good.
No, I love that. Now I'd like to move to a section of this the advice section, and I get a lot of good traction on this because I think, your experience is, especially for folks who are looking to get into the industry, I think is something that people can really look up to, right? So for those who are looking to break into, sports management, the branding field, what are key skills or experiences that you think are essential for them to break into this industry?
I say the three things they should always be is one, definitely understand the social media space, understand engagement, social media, how does social media work. Storytelling is very important because that's very big right now, storytelling. The second thing is as well is I know this is kind of cliche, but emails, like make sure like spelling is correct. Make sure that, you're doing research on the person you want to talk to. Like I get emails all the time. Somebody say hello, Kelly. And it's like a duplicate email. Like I'm like, my name is Nate. Hello, this and that. It's like just do the small things, like extensive research. You know what I mean? Like so, a lot of times I see young kids and they're like, "Hey, Nate, I'd love to pick your brain." And I get on a call and they don't know anything about my background. They just see like highlights of what I'm doing, but it's like, no, do research on me, on a person. And third thing too, I always tell people as well is always try to find value, even if it's the smallest thing. If it's getting coffee, if it's picking up somebody's bag, like I've done all that. Like, do you think the small things don't count? Dominate the small things, and then you'll start getting more tasks on you. But if you don't dominate the small things and do it with a smile and do it like at a high level, you're never gonna get to other things. I remember when I was an intern, they used to call me the coffee guy. I used to make the best coffee. Like I took pride in that, and that's things that a lot of interns I saw they used to hate doing that. I used to love doing that, doing Dunkin' Donuts runs, and I would make sure that everything was done. It was hot. It was the way they liked it, and that meant a lot to a lot of people. So I always tell people, do the small things. Don't never think you too big or this is below you because people take mental notes of all that stuff.
No, that's great advice. And when you think about this, what advice would you give to someone who may feel stuck in their current career and are considering a major transition, like some of the ones that you've done, especially within like a competitive industry like sports?
I would say this is the best time to be in sports because I tell people, I'm like, sports is bigger than NBA, MLB, NFL. Just like I said, sports betting is popular. So all these small leagues, go to them, apply for them, reach out to them because you can have a bigger footprint than just going to your NFLs, MLBs, NBAs. So go to like Major League Soccer, National Lacrosse League, Rucker Park, flag football, pickleball. You can really put your foot in the ground and make a bigger traction than just going to like your traditional sports leagues just because it's so competitive. And also too is a lot of times when you're working with these smaller leagues, you're contracted. You could be working with 10 of them at the same time. There's no non-competes. You're working with these different areas. You're able, and then also too with the smaller leagues, you're able to work on bigger projects. So say like if you're working with pickleball, you may be on a call with the CEO from Citibank's working on a partnership. You at the NFL, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to get those kind of opportunities. So I would say, just keep your options open too in the sports space. As small as you think it is, as it keeps growing, there's other opportunities out there. Like, the industry is way bigger than just the MLB, NBA, NFL, and different things like that.
No, I love that. And as you think about your career, what you're looking forward to next, what type of impact are you hoping to have in the future?
Honestly, in the future, I really want to get into the teaching space, Brian, and teaching young people of color how to navigate not just in the corporate world, but in the business partnership space, revenue space. Because I tell young kids, if you can control revenue, you always have opportunities. If people know that, hey, me bringing on this person can help increase revenue, increase our brand partnerships, our sales, or whatever it may be under that microscope, you'll always have positions. You'll always have leverage. You always have ways to move up. So I really am passionate about teaching our young people of color these skill sets and these opportunities because it's also the network that you bring. A lot of times, Brian, opportunities that came for me because I was on a partnership call with Lids, and then they find me at Rucker Park now. Now we connected on that end, but I wouldn't have the opportunity if they do partnerships for other leagues and different things like that. So I would tell them that that's very important because we don't see a lot of people of color in these different spaces. So that's something that I'm really passionate about in my next step.
No, well, and I wish you all the best in that. Yeah, I think that's important too. I saw a recent post from you, and I forget the gentleman's name who it was, but it was like a Wingstop opening, and you
Yes,
were
Malcolm
like
Jenkins.
Malcolm Jenkins, right? And so some of the moves that and the partnerships that you've kind of struck up with, let's say, former athletes doing either franchising work or other types of partnerships post career, right? Because let's be honest, not people aren't having these 10, 15, 20-year careers. What's the average now? I think, what's it, 5 years
Yeah.
or so, 3 to 5 years from an NFL standpoint, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's lucky. That's
That's
if
lucky. Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. So I wish you all the best with that. So now one last question for you is really, what's one question you have for me that I could potentially answer, about the show, what I'm doing, anything like that?
Yeah, so great question, Brian. So in a perfect world, if you had like a magic wand, where do you see Why I Left in 5 years?
Oh, great question. Why I left in 5 years. Okay. So what I would hope is that, one, first and foremost, that the show is still going, right? So that we're still going. What's great about this season is that I have now expanded the time frame in which I'm asking individuals to talk about their career transitions. And that's a niche that I've become really comfortable in because, like I said, I'm very focused on we don't talk about resignations enough. So I'm trying to break that stigma. So in 5 years, what I'm hoping to have with the show is, truthfully, I hope to have, maybe a few sponsors who are in the show. I hope to have maybe a bigger platform where I potentially have turned some of these episodes and some of the learnings that I've picked up throughout the show into a book of some sort. To really say, like, hey, I want to get this out into the world. Here's all of the lessons that we've kind of picked up over the course of the show, and then really explain that and share that with the world. So I'm hoping that the show, one, is continuing to do well and to do numbers, that the followership increases, and I'm really, striving to build this community where we break down these stigmas around resignations. Would love to have a book. Love to have some potential speaking engagements around this topic, and really continuing to build potential, like in your space, like partnerships with folks who are interested in the topic, want to support it. To be honest, to help me keep the lights on, right? So I'm looking for all of that and then some over these next 5 years. But what I think is most important is that I do want to keep going. I am, at the time we're recording this, I'm roughly 2 years in now. And, there are, when you talk about the podcast space, a lot of folks don't get past episode 5, 10, right? It really kind of falls off. I found a nice way to really integrate this into my own professional life, right? And that I, record on off days and things like that. But I want to keep it going because I'm having a lot of fun doing this and, truthfully, meeting a lot of great people like yourself. So great question. I appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime.
And so I want to thank you for taking some time to be on the show. You're doing a lot of great work in this sports space, and I haven't had anybody come and talk a little bit about kind of the branding and partnership angle on how you're connecting brands with another in order to achieve whatever the goal is. So I appreciate you sharing that. But I'd also love for you to share where our listeners can find you and maybe support some of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So I'm on LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Mr. Urban Sports, entertainment. So it's Mr. Urban Sports and ENT on Instagram, Twitter. My LinkedIn is Nathaniel Cook Jr., Facebook Nathaniel Cook Jr. Love for you guys follow my journey. Anyone has any questions, inquiries, kind of how to get into this space, or if they want to elevate themselves in the space, I'm always a DM way. Love to get back and build that community.
Great to hear. Well, thank you for that. And look, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank my guest, Nathaniel Cook Jr., for joining me today. I'll share all his info in our show notes. And I hope you all have a great week. You picked up something from this that you can apply to your own journey. So we'll see you all next time. And Nathaniel, thanks again, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to Why I Left. Join us next time for more inspiring stories about growth, resilience, and transformation. Visit us online at www.whyiLeft.co. That's whyiLeft.co. And subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Alive Podcast Network. See you soon.